DayZ, we're on Xbox One X. The game is indeed enhanced, getting a push towards a 4K resolution with no noted HDR support. This is a multiplayer-only open-world zombie survival game, and we are checking it out as of the 1.09 update. So I do this with every update that the game gets, kind of a look of things at the current point in time, and generally just what the game is, giving you context in regards to how it plays, and also talking about the new features within the game. So with this recent update, they added a minimal selection of things. This is definitely a smaller update to the game. Small adjustments to the experience, including making duct tape not really helpful anymore, and also adding flags and flagpoles in order to assist with any sort of despawning issues when it comes to building bases. And they added a few new pistols, a couple weapons, and things like that. But that's generally the gist of the experience. They also sort of streamlined and cleaned up the inventory stacking system. So DayZ, if you're not familiar with it, is an open world zombie survival game for 60 players. There are options to expand that. If you rent yourself a custom server that costs extra, you can have 100 plus players available in that, but it is fairly costly. At the base, you're playing in this 230 kilometer square map called Traverse, but there is also a DLC map called Livonia if you want to get a new area to play around in. And I do have a review up for that. If you search around on the channel, you want to see what that map has to offer and thoughts on it. So in this core experience, you don't really have a goal. There's no purpose to it. You're just going around and surviving. The gist of the game is really the social interactions that you have with others. You know how you react to what others are doing, and then they throw zombies into the mix too. So you have to deal with zombies that actually are fairly deadly and will chase you for quite a while. They definitely want to end your life. It's also a game with some hardcore survival elements. You need to keep yourself fed. You need to make sure that your thirst is quenched. You have to keep your blood levels up if you get injured or shot or cut or scratched. And you have to watch for your health as well. And on top of that, there's a factor of environmental aspects, the cold and the heat. You have to watch out for that kind of thing. Now, again, as I've kind of had this issue with previous updates, I do think the food system is a tad over aggressive. I really liked it quite a few updates ago at this point. I think it's a little ridiculous to deal with and a little bit too hardcore, in my opinion, to really be able to do anything in the game. And they've also really made it hard to find food and find resources that are essential to your survival. And I think that really isn't the best course of action for the experience. So I've kind of walked up to this particular area because it's neat. You're seeing the distinction of nature and some of the buildings. It's very much a rundown, large open landmass that is mostly grass areas, trees. There's lots of different aspects to the environment, though. You get different hills, there's landmarks, you can visit castles. There's cool different buildings, and with this recent update, they've actually redone some of the texturing and the designs for the interiors of a number of buildings. I think that helps with the realism. A few updates ago, they also added in the fact that zombies have different sort of clothing items on them, and different, random items will spawn on said zombies, and I think that helps kind of mix things up a little bit too, which is kind of interesting in my opinion. So while I don't have anything with this particular character, just keep in mind that this is a game of permadeath. When you die, your character's dead. That's just how it goes. You can go and find your loot, but it's not easy. And it's kind of, gonna despawn after so long. Or other people might scavenge your body. It's a vicious game of death and intense action, because other people might kill you, zombies might kill you, you might die due to a lack of food. It's interesting in that regard, and it's something that a lot of people really like, that feedback loop system. And it's neat because you get all these different cities you can go and visit, and all these different places you can go to. You can build forts, you can put together and fix a car and drive around using that. And, it does offer quite a lot of really technical details. I say it's a very mechanically based game, because it does actually have a full sort of crafting system. Oh, that's a bad example. There's trees you can break down, and you can get sticks from them, and you can create fires in order to heat your food so that it's not going to poison you. Some food actually is raw and it's not good for your character. It'll make you sick. So it has a vomit system. It's got a volumetrics for your stomach. because you actually need to eat food. So if you eat rice, you don't need to eat as much rice because the rice will expand within your stomach. And I think that's kind of a neat aspect to that. So there is also weather within the world too. You get rain, you get thunderstorms, stuff like that. It's kind of light, but it's interesting and keeps things, sort of fresh. And we almost want to die here, spawn in a different area to show you more of the game. But it's got also a neat sort of battle mechanic to it. It's got some tricky moves. It's got some neat fisticuffs you can do. There's also a first-person option. They have hardcore playlists as well if you want to play only in first person. I prefer third person, but totally up to you. And you get different weapons. There's different melee weapons. There's, different guns. Actually, quite a large selection of weapons present when it comes to guns and stuff like that, which I think is kind of neat. And again, going to the technical aspect, like I said, making fires, creating forts, and other things that you can kind of build together. You also need to manage things, like my character is cut. You can get diseases, and you need to find, cures on the map. If you choose to chew on some other people, you might get some sort of madness, and that'll never be fixed. But that's kind of the cool thing about it. I should also mention that the game does have a system in regards to if you're server hopping, it'll spawn you randomly on another map if you join a different server, which I don't like, and I will keep saying that I think it's a terrible mechanic, but the idea is so that people aren't server hopping into bases and stuff like that. Moving past that aspect, the game just really has a lot to it. Now, we can talk about the performance of the game, and it really is kind of at this point, I think, as good as it's going to get. It actually seems to be running a little bit worse after the last update, just as you're seeing some things rendering and stuff, performance drops and things like that, even in the core experience, minus the mod or custom servers, which push things a little bit further. And that's really, it's a game that's got bugs, and every update introduces more bugs, despite squashing some bugs and despite changing some things. And it really kind of is, I think, winding down development-wise. I know there's another update confirmed after this. We'll have to see if there's more in the year that follows. But you get the gist of what I'm saying in regards to, this is really, I think, almost as good as the experience really is going to be. If you're expecting it to further, improve over time, I can't realistically see that happening at this point because I've been following it on Xbox specifically for years. I've played the PlayStation version, I've played the PC version for hours and hours across all the different platforms, so I really do have an idea of how this game runs and how it plays. It's a neat game. It's a game that doesn't really hold your hand. It throws you out there and expects you to kind of figure things out, which is great for people that make guides, because people really need a hand with this game. But they also change things all the time too, which is a bit tiring. One update, food acts in a certain way, another update, it's completely different, so it's kind of hard to keep up with in that regard. And it really is an unforgiving game. As you can see, loot-wise, I haven't really come across anything despite going to the typical places I go. And it just seems like the loot economy, from what I've been playing over a number of matches with this update, is more hardcore than it's ever been. And I think that's almost a turn-off for new players. At least I think so. But yeah, it was a neat update. It was a smaller one. It was more about quality of life, adjusting some things, giving some new little toys, and fixing some things up. So this game also has a day-night cycle, if that wasn't clear from the weather elements. So, aside from rain, you'll actually have to deal with some night. They've done some great work with night, though. It's not as bad as it, used to be. It's not as dark. It's actually something you can sort of move through, and I think that's fine. So yeah, it's a very interesting game. It's a game with many different elements of it. Because now, aside from playing the core survival game where you're trying to live and make it further, there's also now the element of you being able to play, these custom servers where you can jump in and you can have an experience where you're doing more PvP, or the loot economy is increased, or they spawned in buildings and stuff like that. It's not crazy mods, it's not like PC mods, but they're things that do change and improve the experience. And I think that's kind of a neat thing to keep in mind if you are interested in the game but want something a little bit more fast-paced, because, obviously this is a slower part of the game. It's about going out there, finding supplies, trying to build up your character, and then dealing with the possibility that you could die at any point. And wow, the loot is rough today. But it's quite neat. And I mean, you can also get water from things like the wetlands. You can drink from rivers, but it might make you sick. And that just kind of goes back to that mechanical system of the fact that this game has so many little technical details to it. And there's also like the element of noise too. Seeing my character walk here as a steady noise meter on the bottom left. Then if I crouch, it's quieter. Go prone, different kind of noise. And you can see that even like running. There's also the element of stamina that you have to deal with. Your character's only got so much stamina. It goes down if you punch or you dodge or you're running. You have to keep that in mind. And your character, dying over time. I should also mention the inventory system, which I do think is miles better than what it used to be. There's still a lot of people that complain about it. This is also a game that can be played with keyboard and mouse. There's specific servers for that, just like there is for hardcore only if you want to do that. But as you can see, you just move through the inventory. It's a lot better. They still have a lot of issues with certain items not really working properly or, kind of getting stuck or glitched, but that's the gist of what it is. I do like that they now have 2 slots available for either weapons or melee, so you can have 2 melee weapons, you can have 2 guns, you can have a gun and a melee weapon. That's kind of cool. And all these different slots to kind of decorate your character. You've got these sort of torn clothes that you're spawning with now. You can customize that to a degree within the character customizer at the start menu. Or you just jump in and have a randomized character. Whatever you want is up to you. Then you're finding things in the game. You could get like a cool sort of like Call of Duty Ghost type dark skull face outfit and like dark cloaks. You might find something like, capri pants and wear those, or a skirt or a dress or a business suit, or there's all these different clothing options that you can find within the world, different types of helmets, and you can fix things too to a degree as well, depending on what you have. And it's just like, it's a game that really is quite neat in terms of like the sense of scale, the nature element to it, the exploration, the dealing with other players, because I think that's really at the heart of what DayZ is the fact that you don't know what's going to happen when you run into other players. And I think that's really neat, because there's all these, these people all around you, and are they going to be hostile? Mostly, yes, but some of them are going to be friendly, and you can interact with them. They've got different, kind of menu options that you can do. You can give different emotes. I think that's kind of neat. You can talk in game with a little microphone. You can invite your friends to come play, but you'd have to find them. They actually don't like end up in the same area as you, and it's neat just like walking around and exploring this massive open world environment, and you're never really sure how things are going to go. Are you going to have a good run? Are you going to keep on that character that you've been doing for a long time, or is he going to tragically, or he or she is going to tragically die falling off a cliff or running into a bad zombie situation? The shots of your gun may be making zombies appear closer to you and like running after you. There's all these variables in it. And it's neat because, are you going to be able to make that split-second decision that saves your character's life, or are you going to end up dying? They also have a great newer mechanic. It's kind of old at this point, but we now can like vault and we can climb things. You can climb walls, and so can the zombies and the creatures around you. And it's just neat to get kind of lost in this world. And if your blood decays, the world also changes in regards to the saturation level. It becomes a very black and white type of world, and it's quite crazy to see. And I'm really just trying to kill off this character, but she is like the toughest character I've ever had to deal with. It's crazy. She just refuses to actually die. It's absolutely nuts, because usually she'd be dead by now. But food definitely a factor, and I really, really wish they would adjust that mechanic to make it a little bit more accessible for individuals that are wanting to play this game for the first time, because it is so hostile. Great, so we have another new character here, and we can look around in a different way. The game also has interesting mechanics in regards to the hunting aspects of it. There are some animals, they're very rare to come across, but you can get them, things like chickens or deers. You might even run into a mighty bear. And bears are not something to fool around with. But like I was saying, there's just, it's kind of a lively world to a degree. There's a lot going on in it. And you just get such a large, detailed environment that goes on. And within it is zombies and different towns and other players that you have to think about in regards to how you're going to deal with them. Are you going to hide out? Are you going to be stealthy, go by them? Are you going to directly engage with them in different ways? You know, there's all these different choices that you make while you're playing. And I think that's kind of the beauty of it, is again the social aspect of it and how players interact with each other, which is typically in a very negative way. But who knows, maybe you'll find somebody that's nice. Most players are kind of hostile and will go out to these cool military bases, out into the open landscapes of DayZ. They'll get weapons, they'll come back to the beach and cause problems for people. It's really interesting. I've also forgot something that I really enjoy, which is the gardening aspect of play. That's right, you're able to actually go out and grow crops. There's lots of different seed packets you can collect. The greenhouses actually are a decent supply area for food nowadays, and you're just really, you know, sort of using that to your advantage as you go out here. Do you want to be someone that, like, farms? Do you want to be someone that, like, attacks others to take their loot? Are you a scavenger? Or are you going to group up with others in order to attack other players? There's no goals, so there's no defined paths, no objectives, nothing you really have to do. It's just you out here in the middle of wherever this open landscape, trying to survive and make it as far as you can, doing whatever you want by any means necessary. And most of the time you're probably gonna die, because it's not a game that, you know, is really easy going on the individual. And it's got different elements of things getting ruined. Even if you got that good item, maybe you get shot or damaged and the thing gets ruined and you're stuck with it. You might be able to repair it to some degree, like I've mentioned, but most of the time you're kind of out of luck. And you really get like a variety of environments, from places that are, you know, more industrial. You get cities, small towns, vast open fields, farmers areas, crashed ships, cool islands. There's a couple cool islands that are present within this. If you can survive the swim out there, you might find something that's really a treat. You can find different weapons, different tools. Well, I can't seem to find anything, but you can also go to places like hospitals and find different things. There's an element of like blood in this, like I've mentioned. You can do like a test, and you can have blood plasma and everything. It's kind of crazy. You can lock doors, open doors, shut doors, deal with the infected as much as you want. You can directly attack them, or you can just be like, yeah, I don't want to deal with it. It's totally up to you and your ability and comfort to deal with other players. You know, I was actually hoping that someone would randomly run by, because that was like a highlight of my last review, was like somebody had a gun. I'm like, they probably don't got bullets, and I just walked by them. Because that's the thing, you know, it's your level of confidence in regards to your playability and who you're dealing with, and what you have to deal with as you go around here, you know, exploring and discovering what's going on in the world. Is these ravenous zombies, you know, come and cause problems for you. And while these zombies might seem scary and they might attack you, they're especially bad if you get them in big bunches. You know, there's always other players out there watching, waiting to see what you do. And maybe once you've gotten to a safe spot, they'll come out of nowhere and either punch you to death or blast you from a distance, and you won't even feel the bullet. You'll just be gone, having to respawn with nothing that you had before. It's a vicious cycle. It's something that's not fair to people, and it doesn't try to be. It's a game that really is its own sort of experience, and 1.09 doesn't necessarily really change things a whole lot. It's just smaller refinements on the experience. It's just smaller additions, different changes to the quality of life of the experience, and that's what it really has been. But you know what? It's had really great support post-launch. Lots of content. It grew from a Game Pass, or not Game Pass, Game Preview game. It was on Game Pass, or it is on Game Pass at the current moment, depending on when you're watching this video. It might be gone. But yeah, it's something that just really has changed a lot over the years, and it'll be interesting to see if it, you know, continues to evolve as time goes by, and what happens to it, and how far it goes, and how big it gets. But yeah, that's generally what the experience of DayZ is as of the 1.09 update. I hope I gave decent context into, what the game is, what sort of things you have to deal with, and, maybe a little bit of what is going on in this wild thing, whether you are intrigued by the experience or perhaps not interested in what it has to offer, which is totally fine because this really isn't something that's for everyone.